it's my honor to introduce our speaker. And I have to say that she comes with quite a resume. Just her bio is this long. And we agreed I'm definitely not reading everything. But I can tell you, I have been aware of Dr. Reverend Frankie Timmers for probably 30 years, 25 years. She has 33 years in this teaching and many years as a minister. I believe it was 30 plus. We couldn't decide exactly what it was. She's the minister of the Morristown, New Jersey church. She's been our sister minister in our sister church for so long. I think you're going to really enjoy what she brings with us today. I said, what's the most important thing you'd like me to say in an introduction? And she said that her relationship with Ernest Holmes and the mystical part of religion, being directly able to connect with spirit. The sentence she said to use, she takes science of mind teaching and principles very seriously.
I didn't recognize Melody because of her silver hair, so that may be true for some of you, although I've been silver longer. I think I came out of the womb silver. Good morning, everyone. How special it is to be away from home and to come here. And I know some of you, and I loved the music today, that was great. And some of the practitioners that I've seen along the way at conferences, and of course, you know, Dr. Maxine, who is my sister, and I love her so much, and I know she's having a great time at a conference in Kelowna. So at our center, we are doing the theme for the year, which is Centers for Spiritual Living theme, which is spirituality in action. I'm not sure if you're doing that theme. So I was the blessed one in September to be chosen to facilitate the theme and to choose some ministers to write each week of the talks. And so the theme for the month is stewardship, and we subtitled it Love for the Planet. And the book that I chose, because every month has a book that goes with it, is this one, Spiritual Ecology. The Cry of the Earth, which has many authors in it, many that we all know, Thich Nhat Hanh, Thomas Berry, our own sister Miriam McGillis, who lives in New Jersey, Wendell Berry, Joanna Macy, Sandra Ingraham, Pirzia Inayat Khan, Father Richard Rohr, and my beloved teacher, my beloved meditation teacher, Llewellyn Vaughan Lee. And the way that I got to meet him was in around 2000, I had some losses in my family, and I was treating to find a place to go on retreat. I then lived about 2 hours from Omega. Are you familiar with Omega in Rhinebeck? And I was looking through the catalog. Actually, something else happened first. I was in a bookstore, and like a book fell off the bookshelf. Has that ever happened to any of you, where a book literally falls off the bookshelf at your feet, and you go, paying attention, Indra's Web at work. And it was called The Bond with the Beloved by Llewellyn Vaughan Lee. So when I looked at the catalog for Omega, he was there the last week in June, which happened to be my birthday. So I went, and my life has never been the same. Because that's the kind of teaching where something happens, where there's a transmission that takes place with a living teacher. And I always say that Ernest Holmes taught me about the law, but Llewellyn Vaughan Lee taught me about love. And so the topic today is You Are a Love Story. And it's very much about bringing both the teachings of Llewellyn Vaughan Lee and the wisdom of Ernest Holmes together. Because that is the truth. You are a love story. You are an unfolding love story. You always have been, you always will be. When I was talking to somebody at our center in a class about that, she says, she was fairly new, she goes, oh, no. I'm no love story. You don't know my story. In my story, there's horrible abuse, several rapes, so I'm no love story. I'm not part of this story. And I said, a love story is who and what you are. Love story is not what happened to you. It is what happened to you that you use to remember and discover and live your love story, which is a done deal. Doesn't have to be earned. It's who you are. It's your essential nature. And so the fact that each of us are a love story is a deeper story, right? It's not the story of our day-to-day living, what we experience, what we've been through in life, what obstacles we've had to overcome, what triumphs we've achieved. That's not really the love story. The love story is the story underneath of your soul, of your spiritual evolution. The love story is between you and God, spirit, the universe, infinite truth, whatever you call it. Because it's important that what you call it makes you feel something. So the love story is between you and your inherent nature, your wholeness, your true self, your essential self, your spirit, your soul. That's the love story. And that's the love story you and I are here to live, regardless of what we've gone through or are going through right now. The love story is between your soul and your ego, your human nature. Your love story is between your purpose and how you are living your purpose. And so that means that we all have a love story to live, regardless of our circumstances. The circumstances are there perfectly so that you can rise up as that love story. And that is because love is your lifeblood. Love is your essence. Love is what flows through your vein, through your spiritual veins. Love is your breath. It's your life force. It's the life energy that is ever present. It cannot be shrunk or expanded. It cannot be changed. It just is what it is, fully formed, fully expressing in and as you. It's what we believe about that changes our experience. Because this infinite, universal, divine love is free. It's ever present. It's ever available. It doesn't have to be earned. How many of you have seen the movie Come Sunday about Bishop Carlton Pearson? A few of you. I want all of you to watch it. Rent it, buy it, go to Amazon, Netflix. I forgot where I saw it. I think I saw it on Netflix or Amazon, one of the two. Bishop Carlton Pearson was an evangelical minister, and one day he realized he didn't believe in sin anymore. Imagine that. Imagine being very well known in the evangelical Christian movement and saying, I no longer believe in sin. I can only imagine it. I'm like, whoops. People did not like him for that. And he actually left the evangelical movement and joined the New Thought movement. Listen to this. He has a question for us. Why is everyone so scared to love unconditionally? Right? It's like, whoa. Why is everyone so scared to love unconditionally? That question blew my mind and brought me back. I had a little bit of shame to heal about 10 years ago because for about 20 years I had been preaching that unconditional love does not exist in human beings. It's only the love of God. It's only spiritual love that's unconditional. And so I had this belief that love was conditional, and I was preaching it and teaching it. Not like it was over the top, but it's what I felt, so that's the message that I shared. And of course, that was my own crap because I never experienced unconditional love, so I said it's not a human thing, it's only between spirit and the self. I have since then, because of having found this teacher, Llewellyn von Lee, learned that unconditional love is the only love there is. Conditional love isn't really love. Does that make sense? Conditional love is not really love. If it's conditional, it's not really love. It might be like, it might be preference, it might be I'm pissed off right now. It might be, I don't like you. I don't like what you're doing right now. And it's really okay because love is the way that we evolve, that we learn, that we grow. And so it's okay to acknowledge that our love, occasionally, because we're all very spiritual, right? Occasionally, our love is conditional. And it never has to do with the other. It always has to do with ourselves. And that's the unfolding journey that we're on. So I began to think about that question. Why is everyone so scared to love everyone unconditionally? And I realized I know why. I know why. Do you want to know the answer? You sure? I think the reason why everyone is so scared to love unconditionally is because they're not able to receive it. I think the hardest thing for us as human beings is to receive God's unconditional love. It's not so much about giving, it's about receiving. Because the more that we're able to receive unconditional love, the rest is just syrup on the pancakes, the cherry on the top of the sundae, the icing on the cake. Because once we're able to receive Spirit's love and fill up on it, it just can't help but spill over. It's just a natural thing because what do we say? As within, so without, right? And so I think that that's the question. How come it's so hard for us to receive Spirit's unconditional love? And that is because what's in the way is shame. Shame says, you are not enough. Guilt says, I messed up, gotta fix it, gotta apologize. Shame says, there's inherently something wrong with you. You're inherently broken. And therefore, you are not worthy of unconditional love. And what I realized, that was my life. My life was shame, 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 shame. Cover it up, pretend, pretend, pretend. Even coming into this teaching was a great way to continue to do that. Until I was forced to look within, because that's what we do in this teaching, right? We say the world is a reflection of our own consciousness so that we can see where we get to receive divine love and where it needs to spill over. As challenging as that can be. And there are regular practice for me. I'm moving through a practice right now with my beloved where I am looking at the way we communicate, which isn't always lovely. And so what we do in this teaching, we say, it's not him, it's me. So I got to look a little bit deeper, and I asked a friend, where do I do that? And she was happy to tell me. Ooh, I can still feel it, like I feel nauseous just saying it. So aren't we all in some kind of evolution, unfolding process, learning experience? And how interesting it is that our tendency is to beat ourselves up for it, to judge ourselves or others for it. And yet what that moment needs more than anything is love, unconditional love, unconditional compassion. It was Ernest Holmes that said our tendency is towards the negative. So love then is the journey of our evolution. We each have a personal evolution and then there's a collective evolution. And your and my personal evolution makes a difference in the collective evolution. Indra's web, Anne. How beautiful that was, right? And so we forget. And so when I'm in the world and I hear people complaining about the planet and climate change and about our government and politics in the world, I get very quiet because I try not to, but my head doesn't, I can't always turn it off in my mind, right? And so it always becomes, how do I want to stand in that love story? How do I want to stand in that evolution that is taking place? Because how I stand in it is how it unfolds. And so our personal evolution is about fulfilling our human potential. And if we can just keep that really simple and say, my human potential is to be love in action, to be unconditionally loving, to be free, to accept humanity's flaws, to trust that everything is unfolding in divine right action. And how can that assist the universal or the planetary evolution that is taking place? And then out of that may come some action. Because sometimes we're all really good to treat and meditate, but when it comes to action, it's like there's like a moat with no bridge, right? And so out of that comes action, because we shall be led from within. You might be led to go march. You might be led to do a better job recycling. You might be led to give hugs in front of your, whatever your grocery store is here in Pennsylvania, right? Or you may be led to do something that nobody ever thought of. And so what happens is, when we are aware that we are love unfolding and that our personal evolution is directly tied into the universal evolution, what we might notice is that we feel afraid sometimes. I mean, anybody here ever scared or afraid? Am I the only one? Oh, good. I'm so glad I'm not alone, because that would make me feel a lot of shame. In this teaching, we shame fear. In this teaching, we say fear is a bad thing. In this teaching, we say you're not supposed to be afraid. Have you ever been near a 2-year-old and said, don't feel that way? Yeah, right. It's the same thing, because that's our ego nature. You tell the ego not to do something and it's going to like, whoop, right? And so I am very much about doing shadow work, looking at the parts of us we might not be proud of, and finding ways to have compassion, to use it as a way to grow and learn some things about ourselves, and to expand in our own human potential. There's a lot of great acronyms for fear. You know, one is, I forgot. False evidence appearing real. Yes. What else is there? Forgetting everything is all right. There's another one, but it has the F word in it. It says, F everything and run. Yeah. I think there's a whole bunch of them, right? And so what I'm here to tell you is that make fear your teacher. Fear is a messenger. If you are in a dark alley and you hear a noise, fear will make you run like you've never ran before. So it becomes an inspiration, it becomes an energy, it's a life force, and it's very powerful. But if we don't look at it and face it and work with it, it runs us. And we end up having anxiety and depression and all those things. So the idea then, and part of our evolution as we're learning and growing, is that we look fear in the face and we say, hi, how you doing? That's a Jersey thing, right? How you doing? What's up with you? What's going on? How are you feeling? What do you need? What's happening? Should we call a practitioner? Shall I open up the Science of Mind textbook somewhere and expect an answer? I love doing that. I love taking the Science of Mind textbook and going, and read that. So, if we don't make fear our friend, it will continue to be our foe. It will continue to be a burden. So it's noticing when you feel fearful. Maybe when you're watching the news, maybe when you're trying to speak up to someone you love. Maybe it is when you're looking for a new job. Maybe it is when you have a health diagnosis that you weren't expecting. Maybe it has to do with money. Just notice those things and just reason them out using the Science of Mind teaching. And if you don't know how to do it, get yourself into a class. I noticed you have a class coming up. I'd say get into it. Talk to a practitioner. Pick up some books that really feed you. So I'm here saying that because you're not a fear story. You're a love story. You can't be a love story or a fear story. You're a love story, period. That's the truth. But don't turn it into a fear story by forgetting that love is your dearest friend, that love is your healing energy, the life force within you, that love is your guide, that love shows the truth. And you are a love story unfolding with fear as a guide, as a teacher. Ernest Holmes says, the mind is a magnet, and we attract that with which we identify the self. In order to get the most out of life, we must learn consciously to change many of our habitual thought patterns. If you are filled with fear, refill yourself with faith, for faith always overcomes fear. Faith always overcomes fear. And faith is interesting, right? Because faith is about not really knowing the outcome, but trusting anyway. Because you are in your unfolding story of being love in action. So I want to read another quote by Ernest Holmes, which is from the Science of Mind textbook. I think most of you are familiar with this. Most of you that have taken classes know that Ernest Holmes talks a lot about this universe manifests as love and as law. And love is the divine givingness, and law is how love is made manifest. Law is the way that love is made manifest. So he says this, in an intelligent study of the teachings of the Science of Mind, we come to understand that all is love, yet all is law. Love rules the law. Love is the divine givingness. Law is the way. Love is spontaneous. Law is impersonal. We should study the nature of reality, capital R, with this mind, and in this way we shall avoid two grave mistakes. Either viewing life as made up of only mechanical laws, or viewing it as made up only of spontaneous actions, irrespective of law and order. The beauty is then that we are already love, and law responds to our beingness and therefore demonstrates our greater good. We are asked when we are in a challenge, whether it's a health issue, financial issue, relationship issue, or a vocation issue, to not go by what we see or what we're witnessing, because that's not the end of the story. That's just a part of the story that is asking you to stand in the truth and to stand in principle. So I had a health diagnosis last year that was really surprising to me. And my first reaction was, oh crap, how is that possible? How is that possible? I'm a really healthy person. I exercise, I eat healthy, I treat, I meditate, I recycle, I eat organic, I do all these really good things, right? And then I realized, well, none of us are immune from having challenges. I truly trust that love is all there is, and I know I set the law in motion, so whatever the reason that I'm having this challenge is, I'm going to work it. I'm going to befriend it. And so I arrived in a place from why me to why not? Why not me? And as I did my work, which took a good solid year, I arrived at the place and saying, wow, me! Which was so cool because it doesn't matter what the challenge is. What matters is how do I stand as a witness before it and how do I use this teaching to work it? Because if we don't use this teaching when we have a challenge, then, go shopping or quit and go to wherever else you get your entertainment on a Sunday. Really, because to me, this teaching has a lot of answers and can truly be part of a huge shift on the planet, but it requires that we apply it to the best of our ability, of course, because we're not here to judge each other. So when we are faced with the challenge, the question is not, oh my God, I have this challenge, let me tell everybody and their brother and sister about it and how awful it is, but let me stand in the truth and know something deeper. Let me remember that there is a universal law that responds to my consciousness, and as I stand in the truth, it works for me and creates a bigger, better story for me. The place I arrived at was, oh my goodness, I'm going to die one day, which I hadn't really thought about because I was always young. And then I hit 60 and I went, oh, I'm maybe a little closer to death than I was 50 years ago. And it was such a surprise to me because I've never thought about aging or dying. And all of a sudden I realized there's a new phase in my life where that is going to be a part of me. And I had already lost plenty of people in my life, not like I wasn't familiar with death. And there were quite a few people in our own center that are dealing with illness and death. So I decided to embrace it as a wonderful opportunity to learn some things about myself and to grow and to decide how I want to stand as Frankie in this world. And I wanted to be a powerful example of this teaching. So, Llewellyn Vaughan Lee, who wrote this lovely little book, I totally got lost with time. How am I doing? Okay? All right, I usually have a cheat timer on my little thing at home. So I want to read something from Llewellyn Vaughan Lee that he says in this essay he wrote called, what's the essay he wrote? The Call of the Earth. And this is really an invitation to be a good steward on the planet, which really means being a good steward, period, right? He says it's only through awakening to an awareness of the sacred within creation and of its relationship to our own sacred nature that we begin to right, R-I-G-H-T, the primal imbalance that lies at the root of our present predicament. Any awareness of the world as a living whole needs to include its sacred dimension. Otherwise, any attempt we make at healing what has gone so wrong will be just treating the symptoms, ignoring their underlying cause. So the idea is that we don't want to fix a symptom, we want to go to cause. And the main cause that we're learning in this teaching is that God is all there is, love is all there is. What Llewellyn is saying is that we must remember that all life is sacred. All life is sacred. So I get to look at where I say, all life is sacred except him, her, this, that. That's where my love story is unfolding into greater, yet greater love. A few pages on, he says, the first step is always to recognize what's happening. We can no longer afford to be blinkered by the surface values of our materialistic culture, by its glittering distractions. We need to face the reality of our outer ecological crisis. We also need to sense inwardly the loss of the sacred, all the ways in which, as a culture, we have lost our sense of interbeing with all of creation. So we remember the sacred, and we're really good at knowing what first cause is, right? We remember to always return to first cause when we're in secondary causes. We remember that love is all there is, which means that you are a lover regardless of what's going on in your world. You are a love story unfolding regardless of what you are experiencing. And that you are loved. Even if your ego mind says, no, I'm not loved. I'm especially not loved by Uncle Joe, Aunt Mary, my mother, my father, my spouse, my children. That's got to be healed. That's in the way of the truth. Then you must know that you are lovable. Because most of us have walked around at some point or another saying, I'm not lovable here, in this particular area, or in this particular way. Well, that's just not true. You are lovable, period. Not you're lovable because fill in the blank. You are lovable. So you are loving. Many years I used to say, I'm not sure if I know how to love. Well, that was an interesting belief. First of all, it wasn't true. And second of all, I was comparing to everybody else. And in comparison to everyone else, I wasn't doing it right. And so I had to come to see that the way I love is the Frankie way, and it's not the Melody way, and the Frank way, and the Ann way, and the whoever else way. It's Emily's way. It's the self. It's very unique. And just knowing that I am lovable, I am loved, and I am loving is the truth. So let that be your mantra. Let that be your heart song. And then there's service. I love walking into centers like ours, like yours, and see Emily and Jeff, right? Jeff and Frank getting ready for sound, having them get ready for sound, and having somebody set up for your social hour afterwards, having the bookstore be ready. I already shopped. I know I shouldn't have, but I couldn't help it. I had to get my Yes Please mug. Had to get my Yes Please mug. I don't have enough mugs. And to watch that happen, the way I get to watch it happen every week at my center, that is such a beautiful thing because it shows Indra's web. It shows that you are the spiritual community. You are Center for Spiritual Living Greater Philadelphia. It's not Maxine. It's not Dr. Maxine. It's not Reverend Mike. It's you. And so celebrate that with each other and know that out of really being a love story, your service happens, whether it's picking up trash in front of a grocery store, serving here, or serving anywhere. That's how you spread love. So in closing, I just want to mention this little book because this one's called, it's the addendum book to the book of the month, Spiritual Ecology, 10 Practices to Reawaken the Sacred in Everyday Life. It's also by Llewellyn Vaughan Lee. And it has very simple things that you all already do, but that you get to do with more love, with more sense of the sacred, like walking, breathing, gardening, cleaning, etc. So you can take a look at the books if you like, but I want you to just know that everything can be made sacred with every breath, in every moment, because you are a love story, and so it is. Thanks for having me.